The sixth Evil Dead movie is in theaters now, and I've got a joke for you. What do you call a gathering of fans of the hand-drawn version of the Book of the Dead? Necronomicon. eh. This video is brought to you by Factor. Go to factormeals.com/Murrell50off for a special offer, and stay tuned after the video for more details. Hello everybody, I'm Dan Murrell, and I'm not wearing my glasses today. It's going to be a thing sometimes from now on. I'm here with my review of Evil Dead Burn, the sixth movie in what might be the most consistent horror franchise when it comes to quality, Evil Dead. 2023's Evil Dead Rise was directed by Lee Cronin, but he's off with his mummy, so the franchise reins have been handed over to French director Sebastian Vanecek in his English language feature debut. Those pesky Deadites are at it again, once more stalking and possessing those who dare to meddle with the powers of the Necronomicon. This time, it's a family grieving a recent loss who have all gathered at a remote, rotting house in the woods. A perfect setting. Hunter Doohan, who you probably know from Wednesday, plays a feckless, aspiring author who is also the chief meddler, helping to summon the Deadites after going through his demon hunter grandfather's papers to research a book he'll probably never write. Suhaila Yaqub, who already survived a night of horror in the insane A24 film Climax, is his sister-in-law and keeper of dark family secrets, and there are a host of other victims in the family, including a grandmother with dementia, played by Maud Davey, and a particularly juicy part that most closely nails the traditional tone of this franchise. When I talked about Send Help in my Best of the Year So Far video, I mentioned how much Sam Raimi loves to make nasty films. Films where terrible events are heaped on characters to such a degree that they become demented comedies. All of that started back with The Evil Dead in 1981, and while Raimi hasn't directed an Evil Dead film since 1993, he is back as a producer on this one, and all of the franchise DNA is still there. Evil Dead movies usually walk a very interesting line. They are the definition of excess, but to such a degree that it usually becomes completely divorced from reality. The new series of films, which began in 2013 with Fede Alvarez's Evil Dead, have really amped up the gore factor, and the characters in this film are penetrated, mutilated, bloodied, and dismembered in just about every way that you can imagine. That's nothing new. What has always set these films apart, though, for me, is that when an Evil Dead film is hitting on all cylinders, everything is also done with a twisted sense of comedy behind it. There was some of that in the last movie, Evil Dead Rise, which I enjoyed, but less of it in this film. While Evil Dead Burn does feel a little bit more original than Evil Dead Rise, I think I still prefer the last movie over this one by just a little bit. The second half of the film, or most of it, does tap into that completely unrestrained chaos that we've come to expect, so heightened that it becomes funny. But the first half, I think, plays it a little too straight. The extreme gore is there, but the sick sense of humor only comes in fits and starts. The glee disappears for a while, and the movie just feels kind of mean. I'd give a particular word of warning to animal lovers that there are some scenes in this movie that are tough to watch. Evil Dead films should absolutely make you squirm, but they shouldn't be unpleasant to watch. And parts of this one were unpleasant for me, although I think the movie does recover. What is consistent throughout the movie, though, is a great sense of style from Vanecek and his director of photography, Philip Lozano. Camera work is a big part of this franchise, and we get these soaring through the forest shots you'd expect, but we also get some truly inventive uses of perspective and framing, sometimes rotating whole rooms, sometimes showing us a scene through a mirror, and sometimes just letting the chaos play out in one seemingly uninterrupted shot. Evil Dead Burn is a visually interesting film, though it is uniformly dark and drab, and that helps to carry it through the portions that may not strike the right tonal balance. And then we have the blood and gore, and boy is there a lot of it. This movie may not be feeding Deadites into a wood chipper like the last film, but the violence that we see is much closer and more intimate, which is worse in a way. Much of the movie features just 6 characters, so a lot of pain has to be inflicted on each one of them to get us to the end of the runtime. Watching one incredibly brutal sequence in particular, I was reminded once again of just how ludicrous the US rating system is. Sure, you can turn somebody's face into jelly over an excruciating amount of time in an R-rated film, no problem. But if you show too much of someone's private parts in the wrong context, well, that's an NC-17 for you. Evil Dead Burn may not be unrated, but it feels unrated, and I can't imagine how much more extreme the film would have been without a rating. Sebastian Vanacek, as I mentioned, is a French director, and I think he brings kind of a European sensibility to this movie, making its horrors unavoidable and so overwhelming that the film itself sometimes feels nihilistic and often sadistic. Maybe that's why portions of the movie feel more like a funeral than a party. On the performance side, Suhaila Yacoub gets the most to do, but never really gets to tap into that Ash-like insanity that endeared Bruce Campbell to moviegoers. Her character is not just traumatized by the dead, but she's emotionally traumatized by the living, and I was rooting for her to make it out of this gauntlet of deadites. And everybody else, I think, does a great job of selling some truly twisted stuff. Twisted throughout the film. When I finish watching an Evil Dead movie, I feel like I've been through an experience. I laughed, I cringed, I jumped, I ewed, I covered my eyes, I laughed some more, I cringed some more, and then it was over. While Evil Dead Burn does come dangerously close to putting the audience through the ringer without releasing the pressure valve from time to time, I still think that it works as a movie. It definitely has that Raimi-style nastiness, but could have used more of that devilish excitement that you can feel coming from behind the camera. Its stylishness works in its favor, as do the performances, the makeup and effects, and several memorable set pieces, minus an unnecessary climax after the climax that steers the film back a little too much into too serious territory. Still, I'm giving Evil Dead Burn an It's Good rating on my personal scale, which extends an already successful summer for horror. In a season where many big-budget franchise films are underwhelming audiences, lacking box office appeal, or both, it's good to see that horror can still produce results with a fraction of the resources and twice the creativity. So those are my thoughts on Evil Dead Burn. It is a recommendation from me. Before we go, I want to thank the sponsor for this review, Factor. I'll bet a lot of you had a great July 4th barbecue. I know I sure did. But cooking a big meal like that at home isn't something you want to do every day. Sometimes you just want to take it easy, enjoy the summer, and leave the meal prep to somebody else. That's where Factor comes in, delivering fresh, chef-crafted meals right to your door. Factor's weekly menu features over 100 rotating meals with flavors from around the world that are also built around your goals, whether you're trying to lose weight, eat more protein, support a GLP-1, and more. There's even a Muscle Pro collection to help you recover from working out. Next week's menu includes great options like scampi-style shrimp and salmon. For you seafood lovers out there, count me in. And no matter what the option is, I can tell you I have never had a bad meal brought to me by Factor. And each meal is ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Factor does the prepping, the cooking, and sends it right to your door. I love the convenience of Factor, and I think that you will too. Head to factormeals.com/Murrell50off and use the code Murrell50off to get 50% off and free daily greens per box with a new subscription only while supplies last if you sign up before September 27th. You can see their website for more details. That's factormeals.com/Murrell50off with the code Murrell50off. Thanks to Factor for sponsoring this review. What did you think of Evil Dead Burn? Let me know down in the comments below. And as always, stay tuned right here for the latest in movie news, reviews, box office, and more. Until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you then. Bye.